Hi, it's Congressman Jamie Raskin coming at you for my favorite time of the week, which is Local Hero. And I'm so delighted to be here with our local hero for November 18th, Dr. Cliff Lane. I didn't know Dr. Lane, but it came to my attention that two of my constituents, Dr. Lane and Yolanda Lopez, who's the acting director of the Voice of America, were recognized by the Partnership for Public Service with so-called SAMI medals, which are the Samuel J. Hyman's Service to America Medal. He is quite recognized in the world of science, but he needs to be recognized by everybody in the 8th Congressional District because his career has been dazzling and remarkable. So for 4 decades, he's been at NIH and he's conducted life-saving research for people with HIV/AIDS. He has organized breakthrough clinical trials for Ebola in Africa, and he's helped to establish the national treatment guidelines for COVID-19. 2 years after he got to NIH, he and Dr. Fauci set up the NIH AIDS research program where Dr. Lane pioneered studies investigating how HIV causes the immune deficiency that is central to AIDS. Throughout his career, Dr. Lane has led more than 30 clinical trials generating critical info about how HIV causes disease, how best to treat people who get it, and when to start the antiretroviral treatment. His work's been pivotal in turning an HIV diagnosis from a fatal diagnosis into a manageable chronic disease. On the global level, he's developed a clinical research partnership with Liberia during its ongoing Ebola outbreak in 2014. The initial goal to launch clinical trials of experimental vaccines and therapies received intense pushback from some people outside Liberia when Lane insisted that the design be the gold standard, a randomized controlled clinical trial. And he succeeded in making sure that the gold standard would operate there. Most recently, Lane helped establish an NIH-led public-private partnership that set clinical research priorities for COVID-19 and has led a series of clinical trials in patients hospitalized with the virus. He co-chairs the NIH COVID-19 treatment guidelines panel that has provided doctors, patients, and policy experts with the most up-to-date information regarding the optimal treatment and management of COVID-19 and how to treat people who have it. The online recommendations, which are continually being revised, have garnered more than 30 million page views worldwide. So, Dr. Lane, you have been absolutely pivotal to helping us deal with the diseases of our time. And for those reasons, you're not just a global and a national hero, you're a local hero too. So congratulations to you.
Oh, thanks very much. Those are really kind words. Thank you.
I want to start by asking you this to help situate us in the times that we live in. I think because of COVID-19 and because of AIDS and now sensitivity to other viruses going around, we have the sense that our time is one of unique susceptibility to viruses that fly around the world. But is our time worse than other times? Is it actually better than other times because of the medical research that you and others are doing? Or is it about average in terms of the human population's exposure to killer diseases?
I actually think it's better times. And I think it's better times because, as you were just saying, we have so many more tools now than we had, say, in 1918 during the last, large global flu pandemic. We, can develop vaccines quickly. We have infrastructure to test those vaccines. I do think we're going to see more emerging infectious diseases over time for 2 reasons. One is just changes in the environment, whether it's climate change, deforestation, as well as the fact that we're getting better at diagnosing it. If you look in parts of the world, maybe 1/3 of the patients who are admitted with fevers don't have a clear diagnosis. And that's another area where we do research to try to identify some of these potential pathogens before they become pandemics.
Yes. Give us a sense of how many people have jobs like yours. How big is our medical research force and people who are on the cutting edge of dealing with the infectious diseases out there.
Mhm. So I work at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. So we are one of 27 different institutes and centers that are focused in different disease areas. We're the second largest institute next to the Cancer Institute. We fund, the bulk of our money goes to fund investigators in the US, many of whom have partnerships globally, and we do fund some programs internationally as well. There literally are thousands of individuals who do the type of work that I do, studying infectious diseases, looking for emerging infectious diseases, and trying to develop better countermeasures for those things that we know about, as well as anticipating what the next one might be.
Well, I wonder what it's like being a person of science and on the scientific research and research protocol side of things, watching some of the games that take place with politicians and political leaders and people who are government officials but not scientists. I mean, how do you regard all of that? What is your perspective on it?
It's a really good question. I think it's a matter of, for me, focusing on what I know my strengths are and not getting too distracted by some of the other activities that go on. I think scientists like myself should provide advice to policymakers, but I do think we should stay out of politics, that we should acknowledge what we don't know. And I think that's the hardest thing when a question comes up, should we do this or that? When you say, well, I'm not really sure, these are the arguments both ways. I think we have to acknowledge these are the arguments both ways. However, given even this degree of uncertainty, this is my recommendation, but not to try to sugarcoat it or make it seem simpler than it is.
Yeah. Tell me, I know you live in beautiful Cabin John in Montgomery County. We live in the congressional district with the highest per capita advanced degree holders of any congressional district in the country. And one finds, PhDs and JDs and MDs and MBAs and so on all over the place. Tell me what it's been like for you being a scientist at NIH and in Montgomery County and in Maryland. Do people around here think that somehow, well, this is the second greatest place in the world after MIT or something like that? Or is everybody happy to be here?
But, as I said, I live in Cabin John. So Cabin John's a little bit laid back compared to other parts of Montgomery County. Yeah. We are not really downtown Bethesda, but it's such a nice neighborhood. Everyone around us is so kind and caring. It's just amazing. I have to say, to this day, I don't know who did it. Someone put a sign on our lawn one day, in the height of COVID. And we were here. We lived here, right? I don't even want to think about how long, doing things. Put a sign on saying, thank you for what you're doing. Who does that, right? It's just a really nice place to live.
The only people I know who put up signs on other people's yards are politicians. So. Well, look, we share the exact same spirit that was expressed by your neighbor, by your friend there. We thank you for everything that you've done on COVID, on AIDS, on Ebola, and helping on all the breakthrough medical clinical trials you've done, and advancing the spread of knowledge and facts in our midst. And for these reasons, you're our local hero, Dr. Lane.
Thank you very much, Congressman.